Welcome back to Code with Me. In this lesson, we're going to dive deep into functions in JavaScript. Functions are one of the most important concepts in programming. They help us write reusable and organized code. By the end of this video, you'll understand function declarations, function expressions, arrow functions' default parameters, and callback functions. So, let's get started. A function declaration is the traditional way to define a function in JavaScript. It follows a simple syntax. We use the function keyword, followed by the function name, parentheses, and curly braces. Inside the curly braces, we write the function logic. For example, let's create a function called greet that prints a welcome message. Function greet console.log hello, welcome to JavaScript. To execute this function, we simply call it by its name followed by parentheses, like this. Greet. Functions help us avoid writing the same code multiple times. Instead of repeating the same logic, we can define it once inside of a function and call it whenever needed. Now, let's talk about passing data into functions. We can use parameters to make functions more dynamic. For example, let's modify the greet function so that it can greet a specific user. Function greet user name, console.log hello's name. Now, if we call greet user Alice, the output will be hello Alice. Functions can also return values using the return statement. This allows us to store the result of a function and use it elsewhere in our code. For example, let's create a function that adds two numbers and returns the result. Function addAB, return A plus B. Let sum equals add5 console.log sum. In this case, the function takes two numbers as input, adds them, and returns the result, which is then stored in the sum variable. If a function does not have a return statement, it returns undefined by default. Now let's move on to function expressions. In JavaScript, we can also define functions using expressions by assigning them to variables. For example, const multiply equals function AB, return A top B. We can call this function just like any other function. JavaScript console.log multiply4 3. The key difference between function declarations and function expressions is hoisting. Function declarations can be called before they are defined, while function expressions cannot. For example, this will work fine. JavaScript console.log square 5. Function square n, return n to n. However, this will cause an error. Console.square5, const square equal function n, return n to n. This happens because function expressions are not hoisted like function declarations. Now let's talk about arrow functions, a feature introduced in ES6 that provides a more concise way to write functions. Here's how we define a function using arrow syntax. Const greet equals console.log hello world greet. If the function has only one parameter, we can even remove the parentheses. JavaScript const square equals num to num, console.log square 4. For multiple parameters, we use parentheses again. JavaScript const add AB equals A plus B, console.log add3 7. Arrow functions are great for shorter functions, but they cannot be used in all cases, such as when working with the this keyword in objects. Next, let's discuss default parameters. Sometimes we want to set a default value for a function parameter in case the user does not provide one. For example, function greet name equals guest, console.log hello plus name, greet. Here, if no argument is provided, the function will use guest as the default value. Arrow functions also support default parameters. Const multiply equals AB equals 2 equals A cap B, console.log multiply 5. Since we didn't provide a second argument, B takes the default value of 2 and the output is 10. Finally, let's talk about callback functions. A callback function is a function that is passed as an argument to another function and is executed later. For example, function process user name callback, console.log processing user plus name, callback. Function done, console.log user processed successfully, process user Alice done. Here, process user takes a name and a callback function. It logs a message and then calls the callback function, which prints user processed successfully. Callback functions are widely used in JavaScript, especially when working with asynchronous operations like fetching data from a server. That brings us to the end of this lesson. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more JavaScript lessons. See you in the next one.